Welcome back to this series of tutorials for Metric AB. I'm Marc Adamo from ADPTR Audio, and in this one, we're going to have a look into a specific playback mode. It's called sync mode, and it should come as no surprise that we use this mode when we want to synchronize the reference track to our timeline. One of the things I find most valuable when mixing is to compare how my track starts with how my mix is progressing. When I compare where my mix started, it enables me to hear if my mix is heading in the right direction to ensure that I'm not losing the vibe or becoming desensitized to things like the kick drum or to vocal intelligibility. So I start by bouncing a mix down of where my mix is at the start of the session. I load this into Metric, and now I can compare it to my mix as we progress. It's like an anchor point that helps me set the right direction. Let's have a look at how this works. With the mix down loaded into Metric AB, set the playback mode to sync and start the DAW. When we use the AB button on the two mixes, they should be playing back in sync. And when I skip along the timeline or loop a section in the DAW, the reference track should follow perfectly. The sync counter displays the time or position that the track will start playback from. Normally sync starts at bar 1 on the DAW and 0 minutes, 0 seconds, 0 milliseconds on the counter. We can change the position the reference track starts by editing the sync time, aka the sync offset. Just move the DAW playhead to the position you want to start playback from and click Set. Now Metric AB will wait for the playhead to arrive at that position on the timeline before it starts playing the reference track. During a mastering session, one workflow method is to lay out all the tracks on the timeline in the order we want to sequence the album or EP. The idea here is to compare the pre-master with the mastering version to make sure that we are improving the sound without losing the qualities we love about the mix. This is useful since many DAWs don't allow us to bypass the whole channel strip, and we can use Metric AB to compare the original and mastered version, and we can also use loudness matching to level the playing field. With sync offset, we can line up each of the tracks in pairs by lining up the start point of each track and then setting sync offset to each reference pre-master to start at the right time. Another useful feature for sync mode is start offset. This is like a cue marker that we can use to move to any position to start the track from. When do we need this? Well, sometimes we end up changing the final arrangement of the track. Things like making an intro shorter or adding another verse or even making a radio edit. This will change the sequence and make it so the sections in the new arrangement don't line up properly with the older bounces. In this case, we can't just sync up the start of our reference track to the start of the arrangement because they are different and the sections won't line up exactly. For example, the verse in our final arrangement could start 8 bars later than in our reference. But since we still want to compare this new mix to an older mix, we need a way to line up all the sections of the song. For times like this, we use a combination of start offset and sync offset to match the sections. Let's look at how to do this by comparing the drop in our mix with the drop in the reference track. Take the reference track and move the start offset position to begin playback at the drop of the reference track. And next, we move the DAW playhead to where the drop section starts on our timeline and click Set. That's it. Now, when the drop starts on the timeline, it lines up perfectly with the drop in our reference track, and we can AB the two versions of the drop in perfect sync. We can repeat the process for other sections like the verse or chorus by loading up the same reference track at another slot, moving the start position to the relevant section, and setting the sync offset to begin playback at the right position. New in Metric AB 1.5 is the global sync mode. This enables us to set the sync offset position for one track and update the position for all the other tracks assigned to the global sync group. This is especially useful for when we have several reference tracks all set up, and if we end up changing the arrangement, we now need to set the sync offset to a new position for all the tracks. How to do this? First, we need to assign a reference track to the global group by clicking the global button. You will see the sync offset counter change from white text to orange text. Now we can set the global offset using the same method as a normal sync offset. Move the playhead on the DAW and click Set. Select another reference track that we want to assign to the global group, click the global button, and it updates the offset of this track automatically. Now, anytime you edit the global offset position, all the tracks assigned to the global group will update automatically as well. And if we no longer want a track to be part of the global group, just toggle the global button once more and it reverts back to its own unique offset value, and the text is shown in white again. Some plugins require a bit of a look ahead to do their magic. Some look aheads are barely perceptible, maybe just a sample or two is all they need and we wouldn't even notice it, but others, especially things like limiters, need more. In a perfect world, all DAWs would take care of plugin delay compensation perfectly, but in practice they don't always do this. And in some cases they do this on the main tracks but can't handle it when you use a bus or aux track, and don't report latency compensation correctly or even at all. And this ends up throwing out synchronization between the reference track and the DAW mixdown. So when you try to A/B sections, they don't line up perfectly and it makes it a little harder to stay focused on the details. But fear not, Metric has a trick up its sleeve to solve this problem. It's called PDC, or plugin delay compensation. When the mixdown is not properly compensated for plugin latency, it plays the mix later than the reference track. So to get them to line up again, we need to make the reference track play a little later as well. To do this, start playback, and now when we click the PDC button, we can hear both the A stream mixdown and the B stream reference track at the same time. This makes it obvious to hear how out of sync they are. Now, we just need to increase the delay time for the B stream until both line up perfectly. Kind of like how a DJ mixes two records together. And as they begin to converge, first we will hear them flanging and then tighten up until they are totally in sync. When they are tight, click the PDC button to close the box, restart the transport, and we can use the AB button normally again to hear one track at a time. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into sync playback mode. I hope you've learned some new tricks, and also perhaps more importantly, when and why we use sync mode to make better mixes. If you have any questions or want to know more about anything, then please leave them in the comments section below. And check out our other deep dives in this series for loudness matching, working with the filter bank, and all the new features available in Metric AB version 1.5. Download it now, and until the next one, happy mixing.